Hello and welcome to your Advanced Leadership webinar. I want to acknowledge you for being one of the top leaders in USANA, one of the very best associates, because you're on a Wednesday afternoon webinar. This is definitely taking it the extra mile, investing more time in your education. And I just want to start off by introducing myself. I'm Jared Krebs. I'm pictured here with my wife, Crystal. We're Emerald Directors, co-founders of Team DSI. And before we get into the training, we have a very, very special guest. I want to remind you, and always remember, that amateurs sell products, professionals sell the vision. If you have people that are our clients right now, invite them to this webinar. Let them hear what USANA has done for people, not just on the product level, but on the financial level, on the community level, on the life level. And when you're out there sharing USANA, share the videos that share the full picture of everything USANA has to offer, because you never know when somebody's going to want the products and also partner with us. So I just want to encourage you to do that. And there's very few that are better than this man right here, Hector Gutierrez. He's from Corpus Christi, and he's been with USANA for 5 years. He's a gold director. He made gold in 2.5 years from starting his business. And I've been watching him from afar for quite some time. I've seen him on the stages training at Challenge U and just been very, very impressed. And today he's taken time out of his busy schedule to share his story with you. And Hector, I just want to first of all thank you for making time for us today. Thank you for being such a great leader, such a great example of health, and also a great example of making your business work despite your busy lifestyle. I know you have a lot going on with your gym. Today we want to hear your story. We want to hear the good, bad, and the ugly. We want to hear everything of what it took for you to build your business, to have success. You have the floor. Welcome, Hector Gutierrez.
Awesome. Thanks, Jared, for the opportunity. Anytime I can, help somebody or, people find this beneficial, I'm always, take advantage of it. So, where do I start? Just a little bit about myself. Thank you for the introduction. Born and raised here, Corpus Cristy, Texas. I've been here all my life. Married to my beautiful wife, Brianna. We'll be celebrating 10 years next year. We've got 2 little kiddos. My daughter is 6 and our son is 2. I currently run my own training facility here in Corpus Christi called Hardstyle Kettlebells and Jiu-Jitsu, where we teach people how to get stronger, move better, lose weight, the whole 9 yards. I've been training Brazilian, and I got into fitness through martial arts. So my background is in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I've been training and competing in that area of expertise for almost 17 years now. But it wasn't, running the gym, building a gold directorship, being a jiu-jitsu black belt for over 17 years. Life wasn't always that way. I wasn't always, I know when people see the finished product, obviously like, well, it's, of course you can stay in shape. Of course you're healthy and you're in shape while you run a gym. So it's easier for you to stay in shape when it's actually harder. Because we spend so much time focusing all of our energy on our students that there's very little time for ourselves. It's kind of like seeing like a chef, like a really good chef, but he weighs like 400 pounds. It's sometimes they have very little time. They're so busy making everybody else good food that sometimes they don't even take care of themselves. But rewind 20 years ago. I'm 18 years old, out of high school. I'm 215 pounds with a 40-inch waist. I'm overweight at 19 years old, and life just was kind of crappy at that point. I didn't go to college. I've self-educated myself. I don't have a degree in kinesiology or some kind of physical therapy background. Everything that I've gotten has been just hard work and self-educating myself. So when I got out of school, I just started working. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Health really wasn't a big part of, I guess, my life at that point. At 18 years old, you kind of think you're bulletproof and you can eat whatever you want. And, exercise and things like that aren't that much of a priority. And I didn't even realize that I was that overweight until I saw an Easter picture of myself, and I was, I mean, to my stand, I was pretty big, and it was me and my sister in a picture. And I was like, wow, I couldn't believe that was me at 19. And the funny thing is, what kind of kickstarted my whole, I guess, transformation, if you want to call it that, is it's actually an infomercial. An infomercial is what saved my life. If I go all the way back 20 years, I remember one night I was 19 years old, and I used to work graveyard shifts. I was working at HEB at the time, and I was an overnight stalker. And I'm working overnight. So on our lunch breaks, you know, they have a TV on in the break room, and they just have these infomercials that are looping. And usually, you know, the infomercials that you see in the middle of the night are usually always some weight loss gadget or gimmick or pill or something like that. But it was an infomercial for this machine, this workout machine called a Bowflex. I'm not sure if anybody remembers the Bowflex. Some of the old timers may. But the Bowflex was basically this like in-home gym that you would work out in. And at the time, I didn't want to go to a regular gym. I felt self-conscious of, you know, I knew that I was overweight and I didn't know what exercises I should be doing. But I knew that I had to do something. So I was like, you know what, I'll buy this Bowflex and I'll just get in shape in my apartment. So this is like 2000. And so this Bowflex gets in, I put it all together, you know, all in one night, and I'm like exercising till like 2 a.m. And I just became hooked. And like within 3 months, I had lost, I think I lost like 20 pounds. I got down to, I went from a 40-inch waist to like a 32-inch waist in 3 months. And at that point, I was kind of hooked. I was like, oh, this is something that I actually enjoy doing. Now, I didn't know that I wanted to do it as a profession at that time. I just knew that I really enjoyed staying in shape. I liked the way it made me feel. Obviously, confidence was up. So about a year later, 2001, I start training. A friend of mine introduces me to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've always been a martial arts fan. You know, the old days of Bruce Lee and, you know, Jean-Claude Van Damme and a lot of these other old school, Chuck Norris. So I've always loved martial arts, and I always knew that I wanted to do a martial art. I just didn't know which one. And so he and I were talking, and somehow we started talking about this jiu-jitsu thing. And I'll never forget, we're working the dairy department at HEB, and he said, hey man, like you should come. I started doing this jiu-jitsu, but it's not Japanese, like traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu. It's this Brazilian style of jiu-jitsu. And I was like, that sounds okay, cool. I don't know what any of that is, but I'm interested in learning about it. So we went, and it was on a Tuesday night, and I showed up in sweats and a white muscle t-shirt. And I was in pretty good shape at that point. I was probably about 185 pounds. I was in good shape. I was 20 going on 21 years old. And I got my butt kicked by this guy that I outweighed him by about a good 20 to 25 pounds. And he just made me feel kind of useless. And I just kind of fell in love with it. I never turned back. And I started training every single day on top of working out on my Bowflex. And then through jiu-jitsu, I came across kettlebells. So this was in 2006. So the gentleman that brought kettlebells to the United States, his name is Pavel Tsatsouline. He's a Russian that brought kettlebells to the United States in 1998. Well, currently, he is my current coach and my mentor. He's who I learned from. So all of our students get all of the training and strength principles that, you know, they come directly from him, is where I learned it all. So in 2006, we had a jiu-jitsu seminar where one of our fellow teammates, he was a black belt at the time, and he came down and he did a seminar over a weekend. This was in 2006, and the guy was about 160 pounds soaking wet, and the guy was just crazy strong. And when I would roll, we call it like sparring, we call it rolling. So when I would roll with him, I mean, the guy felt like he weighed 250 pounds. I was like, man, Tyrone, what do you do for like strength training? Like, you're crazy strong, man, and you're not even that big. He's like, why? He's like, well, I mountain climb for fun. He was living in Colorado. So I mountain climb for fun, but I train with kettlebells. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Don't even know what that is, but cool. And then one day I'm at Academy and I see these rubber coated kettlebells. They only had like 2 of them. One was like a 10-pound kettlebell and the other one was a 25-pound kettlebell. And so to me, I was like, man, 25 pounds, that's kind of heavy, which fast forward to today, that's something that our females start out with is a 26 pound. So all the bells are in kilograms, 12 kilogram, which is 26 pounds. So anyway, I buy this kettlebell and I start trying to use it on my own. I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I go to YouTube, or I go to YouTube University where I can learn for free and not, have to worry about hiring anybody. And I just kind of learn on my own. And I literally, over the course of 4 years, I just kind of literally beat myself up. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. And this was right around the time I started competing in jiu-jitsu also. I knew that I was like, I started taking my health serious at that point. I wanted to start doing some competitions. By this time I was about 25, 26 years old. So I started to compete so in jiu-jitsu, we've got specific weight classes that you have to adhere to. So my weight class was I was 185 pounds and my weight class had to get down to 181. So I had to really start following, paying attention to what I ate, because at the end of the day, literally you are what you eat. You will perform at a certain level depending on what it is that you're putting in your body. And even recovery time, you will recover based off of what the quality of the nutrition that you're putting in your body. So I started paying attention to what I was eating. I started getting leaner. And that's when I started, health kind of became an importance in my life. And that's when I was like, you know what? I want to become, like, I started falling in love with the whole kettlebell thing. It was something unique. It was something that nobody ever offered. I didn't want to do a typical gym where you go and, you're doing, biceps on this day and abs on that day and cardio on this day. For one, as an athlete, I just didn't have time. I didn't have that time to be spending an hour a day, 3 or 4 days a week. I didn't have that kind of time. And now, even as a busy person, many of us are so busy, that's usually one of the biggest objections, in the fitness profession is people saying, well, I don't have time. And I'm pretty sure we get that a lot also when it comes to business or when it comes to nutrition is I don't have time. And funny thing about time, one of my business mentors, way back when I was kind of getting started, that was my first objection to him was on my action items. He was like, hey, did you get this done? And I was like, oh, I didn't have time to finish that. And he kind of stopped me and he checked me right there really quick. And he said, look, really quick. He says, you do have time. He says, you have all the time in the world. You do have time. You have all the time in the world. So I was like, well, dang. So what that means is it's all about priorities, right? You need to prioritize what's important to you. So I kind of got off track there. But so I started, paying attention to what I was putting in my body. I started prioritizing this in my life. Like, I want to become a kettlebell coach because nobody else is doing that. It's a new opportunity. It's not some improvement offer. So I Googled and I was beating myself up. So for one, I didn't know how to do it. So I was like, well, I got to figure out how to do this. And that's when at the same time I was going through, I was actually trained to become a yoga teacher. I was studying anatomy, physiology, exercise science, all on my own. Like I'd go to Google and I would buy these college textbooks and I would read them and try to decipher them on my own. All while running a business. So one thing I left out was the time when I started training jiu-jitsu, the time when I started losing weight and making exercise a priority for me, I actually started my first business. So when I was 21, I bought and ran my own bread business. And you heard that right, bread, like pan dulce. I was running my own bread business. The company that I was working with, I was contracting with was a Flowers Baking Company. They're stationed out of San Antonio. The products that I owned was Sunbeam, Nature Zone, Cobblestone Mill, Bluebird. Those were all my products. And I serviced some of the largest corporations in the country. And I had a set territory. So at 21, I bought my first business. I bought it for $35,000. I financed it. At 21 years old with someone that had pretty poor credit and didn't know what the heck I was doing. But I knew that I didn't want to work for somebody else. At the time I was working for HEB. So I jumped head in, took out a loan, bought this business, and and I did that for 12 years. So over the course of 12 years, I took that $35,000 business and I turned it into a 6-figure recurring revenue for myself at the age of 21. I ended up eventually selling that, which is kind of where I'm getting into now with the kettlebells is, even though I was making really good money, I was making 6-figure a year income. The bread business is something that kind of never goes dry. Right. So long story short, I came across USANA. So through kettlebells, I sold off my bread business, opened up my own gym, and this was in 2011. So 2012, I come across USANA. And I was a person that didn't believe in nutritional supplements. I didn't believe that, I thought, if I just eat healthy, I don't need to take supplements, right? And for good reason. I heard so many horror stories about supplementation. So one of my instructors at the time who was working for me, his name's Brent Norman. He's now a silver director in USANA. He actually asked me, he's like, hey, look, I found this company. It's not what you think it is. Just would you be willing to sit down with somebody if I brought them in? And I said, yeah, sure. And I was actually approached by several different companies from Advocare to Amway and Herbalife and many others. And for whatever reason, I didn't believe in the whole supplement thing. So anyway, I only agreed to sit down and hear about USANA because for one, it was one of my coaches and I knew that he wouldn't do anything to betray my trust. So actually the person he introduced me to that I sat down with was Brian Bolke. So Brian and I sat down and he pretty much, I'm kind of a straight shooter. I like to get right down to the point. As soon as he sat down, I said, okay, man, just tell me, like, what is it that you're selling? Like, what's going on? Like, just give me the real deal. And so he kind of ran me through a quick, almost like a health and freedom. It was some slides he had on his iPad. And I saw all the science behind the company, which made me feel really good that they put science first and that it wasn't just about selling products. Selling, if you're just selling vitamins, you're going to go bankrupt, right? You've got to be able to sell a specific experience and a new opportunity. So, like at that moment I signed up, and I'm also another person that goes all out. I don't do anything half-ass. I don't let's say if I go buy a car, I don't buy the base model. I want the most expensive model that's going to last me forever. So I started out at this time, we had what was called a pro pack. Those don't even exist anymore. It's a $1,200 package to jump into, basically to get your USANA business running. So I was like, look, man, I want the biggest package that you have. If I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to go all the way. And so one of the reasons why I did that is because I needed a company, because my customers were already asking me, what kind of, should I be taking protein shakes? Should I take vitamins? They were already kind of asking me these questions. And I would always tell them that they didn't need it, or I would refer them to like a local nutritional supplement store here in town. But I really didn't know what was in those products. So at that point, I was in a way like looking, but not really looking for a company. It just happened. I got lucky that I accepted to hear about USANA first. So so I got signed up, and this was in 2012, July 2012. And it was kind of perfect timing, because the fitness business is a pretty challenging profession to be successful in. 2 out of 3 gyms that open or closed in the first year because there's a lot of turnover. So as I started to get deeper into USANA, and I at first I just joined it just to enroll customers. It wasn't something that I don't want to, I felt pressure. I didn't want to feel pressure to go and enroll associates. So from there, I was like, you know what? Gym overhead is running a traditional business is just so expensive. There's so much into it, and there's a lot at risk. So I saw that the risk factor with running a USANA business was just so much less. I mean, if it didn't work, my auto order gets turned off. Like, what's the big loss, right? And the worst thing that's going to happen is my health's actually going to improve. So right at the same time I joined USANA, I tore my left medial meniscus and I tore my right MCL. So I basically doubled my dosage on Precosa, Biomega, and Proflavanol over the course of 2 years. And for me, I actually had my knees tested, and they were had an MRI done, and I needed surgery, and I opted out for not having surgery. Over the course of 2 years, those products have completely repaired, and the tissue has re-healed itself. Later to find out that the intelligence technology has been in the Precosa for the last 3 to 4 years. So, yeah, I could keep. I mean, you can stop me at any point. I can just keep going on and on. So once I started actually making income with USANA, I realized this thing was real, and so I went director in. Let's see here. I went director in, I think, October of 2014. So it's just barely 2 years in. And then February, which was like 3 or 4 months later, I went silver. And then right after I went silver, it was kind of like a joke. I said, after I went silver that day, I said, well, I'm already week one of gold is already done. I kind of made that joke. And then I was actually driving to the first Challenge U in San Antonio. I just went silver, and I was like, well, my first, week of gold is done. And I was like, well, you know what, why not? Why not just keep going? And so I worked really hard with my team. I worked long nights. Like I literally worked until, midnight, 1, 2 in the morning every night for that whole entire month. And by the end of week 3, I had pretty much completed my gold run, because gold, you got to make $4,000 over the course of 4 weeks. And so I had already attained that by the end of the 3rd week. So the 4th week was just gravy. There was no stress for me to close out. I didn't have to worry about, just stressing. Plus I was traveling that last week. So yeah, so with it from October of 2014 to February, March of 2015, I went from achiever to gold director.
That's phenomenal. And tell everyone what the incomes are for achiever, director, silver, because some of these people don't even know what that means.
So achiever is making $400 in a week. So, I mean, an extra $400 a week, what kind of, would that change your life, right? And then director was $600 in 1 week. And then from director, you have different levels of director. Your next level would be bronze, and that would be making an $800 check, right? And then silver is $1,000. Your first, which is one of the biggest milestones. I mean, making $1,000 without having to go to a physical job, being able to do it from your laptop, like at a coffee shop. I did it at my gym. I didn't have to leave. I didn't have to go anywhere else. And then gold director is $1,000 a week for 4 straight weeks, or $4,000 within 4 weeks. And then from there, the levels keep climbing. Then you have gold director. Then you got executive gold, which is doing it for 13 straight weeks, and so forth.
That's right. So I know we have a line full of people that probably definitely have questions. I want to start with a question. I always like to ask this one. What was your biggest challenge after you signed up that was so hard that you felt like quitting, but you pushed through? Like, what was like one of your hardest moments you had to overcome?
Honestly, was having a good system. Honestly, I think one of my greatest challenges was I was letting anybody in my business in the beginning. Anybody that wanted to do it, I would, hey, yeah, like, you want to join my business? Cool, let's do it. Only to have to be on them. Like, I'm not here to babysit people. I like, you have to want it for yourself. And I was just kind of letting anybody in. Anybody that wanted to drop, $500 to $600 to start their business. But then it just turned into like a babysitting thing. And that was really hard for me to overcome, because I was wasting, I don't want to say wasting, but I was investing a lot of energy into people that really didn't want it. So over the course of, studying what other best business people do and learning more about positioning and being able to find the people that really want to work with me and pre-qualifying people. So now I pre-qualify, and actually I go for a very specific market. I only work with other gym owners. So if they're not a gym owner, they're not allowed in my business, because that's the system that I'm selling. I'm not selling USANA. I'm selling them a system to teach them how to develop new streams of revenue inside their gym. So once I started doing that, I didn't have to motivate this person to build their business. They're already motivated, right?
Sure.
So that was one of my biggest problems, was trying to motivate people to want something that they didn't really want.
Oh yeah, totally. That's an impossible task.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for sharing that. Thank you for your transparency. I know that I've also dealt with that over the years, and I'm sure a lot of people on this call have as well.
Yeah.
All right, let's open it up for questions. You can unmute yourself and ask Hector a question, or you can type it in the chat and I'll ask it. But let's do this. We got 4 minutes left here with Mr. Gutierrez. Who has a question? Okay, we have a question from Jared Harris. What are some, and he's out of Salt Lake City, what are some objections you helped your prospects to overcome?
Well, usually it's always time and money, right? Those are the two common objections that you're going to get when it comes down to presenting your opportunity to them. So I basically sit down with them and I ask them. I only ask them 4 questions. So when I sit down with someone I'm considering bringing into my organization, I only have 4 questions. And when I jump on a phone call with them, I'm pretty upfront with them and say, look, I'm going to ask you 4 questions. And depending on how you answer these 4 questions, we will, we'll move forward or we won't move forward. And so the first question I ask them is like, look, imagine you and I are sitting in a coffee shop, and a year from now, like, what would have had to happen personally and professionally in your life to realize this was the best decision you've ever made? And so what that question does is it gets them to not only, because the first thing that people are going to tell you is their external desires. Oh, I want to make more money, or I want to, lose weight or whatever. Those are external, but this question is going to pull out their internal desires. They're going to paint you a picture of what they really want. So when I go through these 4 questions, it's like there's really no objection towards the end. It's just, you've got to get them to
in Salt Lake City, my dad, he asks, do you have a USANA display in your gym?
Yes, we have some of the products displayed actually in the bathrooms. We have throughout the gym. We actually have showers in our gym, and in the showers, I've got all the Sansei stuff for our customers to use, like complimentary.
Oh, fantastic. I think we lost your webcam.
Yeah, I just turned it off. I'm moving around.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, we'll go ahead and show the slide. So let's see if we have any other questions. Let's see here. All right. Do you retail the products or set them up as a preferred customer at your gym?
So the way we do it at my gym is when they come in, once we've pre-qualified them, they're a good fit, and we get them set up with their training, depending on which package that they start with. So depending on which package that they start with, they get one of 3 to choose. We give them a free 28-day supply of the products. So if they start out with like our longest term program, which is an 18-month program, if they pick the 18-month program, they get a bag of shakes, they get the Cell Essentials, and they get the Biomega. So all in all, it cost me a little over $100. So I take that initial cost up front. But long term, just through their membership, I'm going to make that up.
Oh yeah.
And then we do assessments. We reassess with each student every 4 to 6 weeks to take new before and after photos. And then we also, from there, we push to get them to become a preferred customer, because now like, well, I'm almost out of my vitamins. I'm out of my shakes. I need more. And then we just teach them about the benefit of being a preferred customer. And then we teach them about the benefit of auto order. And usually it's we don't get everyone, but usually it's like 50-50. So out of 10 people, we'll get about 5 that actually will become preferred customers. And the other 5 were like, oh, I just like paying the whole retail. And that's up to them.
That's up to them. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And then last question comes from Aaron Ladson in San Antonio. He says, me being a current athlete, what would be an effective way to run your system outside of the gym?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Yeah, that actually might be a longer question, especially when you're talking about running a system. So maybe I can connect you two on Facebook Messenger. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I'm just connecting with Facebook Messenger. That kind of I get a little more detail behind the question.
Sure. Fantastic. Awesome. All right. Well, Hector, this has been a phenomenal interview. Thank you so much for sharing your story. The highlights for me is definitely how you were approached. The person who approached you said, this is not what you think it is. Would you just be willing to sit down and hear it out?
Yeah.
Or like whatever you said, I want to go back in the video and hear that, because I thought that was a really good, like non-threatening approach, and then obviously once you did your research, you were all in. I also like your work ethic. I can tell that you're a very hard worker, and hearing about your gold run and how you got that 4th week done, basically already pre-done those first 3 weeks. So these are like super big tips to the team. Thank you for sharing everything you did. It was also good to know your background and what brought you into USANA and your fitness journey. I love this picture of you here. Where were you at in this picture?
That was at my school. It's there, my gym.
Your school. Oh, That's awesome. Great picture.
Yeah. Thanks.
Well, thank you again, Hector. Let's go ahead and unmute the lines and everyone say thank you, Hector.
Thank you, Hector.
Thank you, Hector.
Sure,
Thanks, Hector.
Have a good one.
All right, have a great day.
Just before we close out, if anybody's interested in that, what I call it, the 4-question close, if they're interested in those 4 questions on how I pre-qualify my students, just reach out to me on Facebook or something, and I'll share that with you.
Awesome. All right, we'll do that. We'll put your full name in there so people can find you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Hector. Thanks again. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.